Jack Spade back here with you, High Noon Leatherworks, for another leather adventure. And today, we're going to finish up the laser engraved Wild Bill Hickok holster. You can see I've got some dye on it. This is saddle tan. The laser engraved image turned out great. I wasn't sure how it was going to look once I put the dye on there, but I've got the dye on there. We're buffing down some sheen on it, and then we're going to get to stitching it up and putting the strap on. So we'll be finishing this up and we'll get to see what it looks like. So without further ado, come on in and let's get started. I took the saddle tan dye and it's fibings, and I kept my test laser engraving on the veg tan leather that I had, and then I took that and applied it a couple different ways, with a rag, with a dauber, then with a dauber, and then buff it a little bit with a rag, and it turned out pretty sweet. We can get that in the light where you can actually see it here. There we go. So you can see there's a lot of detail in that image, and it just popped right out, especially after I put the sheen on it and buffed it down a little bit. So there's the holster. It's pretty much ready. I've got the strap here that I've got to put a little sheen on. So I'll put a little bit of fibings leather sheen on that, and that will kind of darken that up just a hair. And I like to just put some on a rag and then just wipe it on there. And then as it starts to dry, I'll switch my rag to a drier part of the rag, and that's when I'll start lightly buffing it. And as you buff it, that's when the sheen pops out. So I'm not putting hardly any pressure on there at all. And this is a microfiber cloth, so I don't get anything stuck to my leather or the edges or anything. And you can see just that quickly how shiny that turned out. Now, if you like it dull and older looking, then just don't put the sheen on it. But I like the sheen. It does protect it. Protects and conditions leather with flexible acrylic finish is what it says on the bottle. So I mean, I'm not trying to sell it to you or anything. I just like it. It's a good product. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I am going to stitch this. I do have to figure out what color of stitching that I want to put on here. I think I'm going to use tan. I think that will stand out a little bit. Now with the dye, this dye isn't super cured, so I would assume this will darken up just a little bit. But what I like to do on my stitching is I like to take, and I'll do a saddle stitch using 2 needles. I'll take just about an inch past my full length of my stitching where I'm going to stitch down, and then I'll make that 4 times that long. So there's 2, there's 3, and there's 4. And then I always give it at least 2 inches more. Just make sure. I'd rather have to throw away a little at the end and trim it off than not have enough. So I always give it a couple of inches extra. This is not that expensive. Um, this is artificial sinew that's waxed and it's natural color. There's 50 yards of it here, and retail price is $8. So it'll last a long, long time. So let me get rid of this dye, and I'm going to leave these gloves on just because, like I said, I'm sure this dye is not cured all the way, especially in the stitching holes. So I'll take this artificial waxed sinew and I'll grab a couple of needles out of my sewing box. And I thread one about 4 inches down and then pull it nice and tight and smash that in the eye. I pull that down, that wax, and that'll stick to itself. I'll do the same thing with the second needle on the other end. Pull it down approximately 4 inches, pull on it, smash it down in the eye. That gives me a nice tight needle on each end to stitch with. Now, what I'll do is I want to terminate my knot down here in the bottom so you can't see it. So I'll terminate it up inside. So I'll start at the top. That's what's going to get the most wear anyway, is this top stitch, just because of putting the gun in and out of the holster. So I'll pull that through that first hole and then even up that thread. So I've got it through the first hole. I'll take the front needle, put it through the second hole from the front to the back, pull it through. Now I'm just going to barely snug it, because if I pull very hard it'll pull my other thread back out. So then I take needle in the back, put it in the second hole, the same hole I just pulled that one through, and pull it through to the front. So front to back, back to front. Then I'll grab both of those pieces of thread and pull them good and tight at the same time, because now that locks my stitch in. Now, if I really want that to be nice and secure, and I'm going to use this a lot, and a gun's going to go in and out of that, then I'll do what's a double lock stitch. So all I'll do is put the front one back through the top hole. Notice I'm using a tiny pair of needle nose to pull that needle through, because it gets a little tight. Then I'll take the back needle, put it through the top hole again. So now I've got 2 stitches, basically 2 saddle stitches in that top hole. So that's going to make that really secure and rugged at the top. Now I can go ahead and start just like I did the first time. Take it to the second hole. I can, now that it's all locked in there, I can pull that nice and tight each time. Go from back to front in the second hole. And now that I've got that stitch locked in there, I'll pull that nice and tight. Now I can go ahead and continue. So I'll go to the third hole, front to back, And now I can pull those nice and snug as I pull them through. Go from back to front. Mostly the reason I use that small needle nose on those needles is it saves my fingers from getting raw. And I'll just keep doing both needles the same way, front to back, snug. Notice I'm pulling that needle or that thread up. That gets it away from my needle going from the back through the front. Makes it easier and I don't split my threads. Snug that down. Get that out of the way. And then you just continue all the way down. When I get to the end down here and I go to terminate this, I'll bring you back and show you how I do that. Alright, so I've gotten down to the last two holes here that I haven't stitched. So I've stitched from the top all the way down to those last two holes. So I'll go front to back, pull that through. Still the same technique, back to front, pull that through. Now you could double stitch this also if you wanted to, like I did the top, to put a double lock stitch in, but it doesn't get near the wear down here that it does up there. So what I'm going to do is on my last hole, I could either double stitch it and do this or finish it like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide my lock stitch. So I'm only going to put it through the first thickness of leather and come out the center. Same way on the back. Go through the back side only and come out the center. Now what I'm going to do is pull my needles off. Snug both of those down real good and then tie it off with a knot. And that knot, as you'll see, disappears between those two pieces of leather. So you will not see that. Then what I'll do is I'll take scissors and I'll cut that off. I'm just cutting it off even here. I know my arm's in the way, but I'm just cutting it off even right here. I'll take my stylus and my lighter and I'll get those two waxed threads pointing down where I can get some fire on them. And I like to start my lighter and move it in instead of starting it right on there. And push those waxed threads down in that groove. And then I just push my leather together while that's still hot. And I've got a hidden termination knot. Can't even see it in there. Be nice and strong. I've got my stitching done. It's nice and tight. Now I'm ready to better put my needles up so I don't lose them. Now I'm ready to go ahead and put my strap on. Let's move this out of the way because I've still got my Chicago screw here. And I need my standard screwdriver. I want to make sure But I've got both sides of this opened up pretty good here. So I don't have to struggle going through it. Because sometimes you put that dye on there and it will shrink that leather up a little bit. So let's go ahead and pull this around from the back the way we want this. We can go ahead and make our crease where we're going to put our belt through. And I'll go ahead and put the strap through this side. Bring it around to this side. And I love that sound. That leather against leather. And then I'll put my Chicago screw in, pull that strap through, put the other side of the strap on the Chicago screw, stud, then go ahead and start my actual screw in the stud, and that'll pull those good and tight. Sometimes I'll put just a touch of blue Loctite or even just a little bit of white craft glue on there. That keeps it from backing out. You're not going to have that much vibration on it or anything. So there's the finished product. You can see how the laser engraved photo came out great. A lot of detail. Now that it's finished, we got to double check and make sure the gun fits in there good. So let's grab it and let's go ahead. We'll take the tag off of it. And let's see how well it fits. Oh, it's perfect. See, that's why I like keeping those patterns. That way it's very consistent from one holster to the next, and I can reproduce those with the exact same specs every time, because I mark them, mark what it's for, and then I could just pull those back out and reuse them. Even if I need to tweak a little something, it works great. Alright, so we have another completed project down. The only other thing I could think of that we might want to do to this is put a little hold down on the hammer, and that's easy enough. You can punch a hole through the end here by the hammer and just pull you a piece of lace through there and pull it. I don't even like putting a knot on it. I just like pulling both pieces through here, put that on there. That way you can pull on it and it'll loosen that up enough to flip it over and get that out. So it fits nice. It looks awesome. If I can get it in the light. I'm in a shadow for some reason, but it fits perfect, and it would definitely look good on. So got a custom special edition Heritage Rough Rider with the Wild Bill Hickok, Dead Man's Hand, Aces and Eights. I put the photo, same type of photo, on laser engraving on the holster. Turned out awesome. So you can do just about anything you can think of with these laser engravers. And again, my biggest tip from what I found using it is make sure you case your leather. That way you get a good, nice, crisp image and you keep the smell way down. So I appreciate you coming along, seeing this project to conclusion. Come back next week, we'll have a new project. And as I always say, please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.